You've heard that saying 1,000 times, right? It gets used to justify pretty much everything, from a tiny white lie all the way to a full-blown betrayal. But have you ever actually stopped to think about what it means? So let's do that. Let's really dig in and unpack what we're saying when we use that phrase. Yep, there it is. A phrase so common, it's almost like background noise. The idea is that in these two super extreme parts of life, love and war, all the normal rules of right and wrong just go out the window. And that's really the heart of the matter, isn't it? Is this just a romantic way of defending the intense feelings we have, or is it something a lot darker, kind of a philosophical blank check to cause chaos? To get to the bottom of this, we've got to strip away the poetry and start with the raw biology of what's happening inside our brains. So, before we can even get into what's fair in love, we need to have a handle on what love is, from a purely biological point of view. See, if you ask a neuroscientist, love isn't some magical, mysterious force. Nope, it's a survival algorithm. It's basically a powerful biological program that evolved to make us stick together. Because, let's face it, cooperation was the only way our species was going to make it in a pretty dangerous world. And the main character in this whole biological play, it's a hormone called oxytocin. We call it the love hormone because it helps us bond and connect with our group. But here's the kicker. That exact same chemical is what makes us fiercely protective of our tribe and really suspicious of anyone who's not in it. It's a survival chemical, not just a feel-good one. Now get this. This is the really wild part. The molecule itself is always the same. When you hold your child, for instance, your brain releases these tiny, super precise little pulses of oxytocin, all wrapped up in this rich human context. But if you take a drug like MDMA, you just get this massive, unfiltered flood of the exact same molecule. You feel this sense of universal love, but it's hollow, and it fades, because there's no context. It's just a chemical. The meaning comes from the software that's running it. Okay, so this biological need to connect, it actually leads us to a really surprising, kind of mind-bending philosophical idea. We all talk about wanting freedom, right? We fight for it, we sing songs about it. But what if, deep down, that's not what we actually want? I know, that sounds pretty intense, but hang with me for a second. We're not talking about literal chains here. We're talking about a psychological thing. This deep-seated need to commit ourselves to something, to serve something bigger than just our own fleeting desires. And why would we want that? Well, because total, unchecked freedom, it's actually terrifying. It's this crushing weight of being 100% responsible for your own life, your own meaning, every single success, and every single failure. That is a massive burden. So to escape it, we naturally start looking for a master to serve. Just look around at the world today, maybe even look in the mirror. To escape that anxiety, who or what have we willingly put in charge? I mean, a lot of us serve the rat race. We're basically slaves to the almighty dollar, trading our time for a number in a bank. Or maybe it's YOLO, which really just makes you a slave to the next dopamine hit, always chasing a feeling. Some of us just hand over our critical thinking to an ideology and let the group tell us what to believe. And probably the snakiest one of all, the ego. Just being trapped by your own pride, needing to be right all the time. And if you want to see what this looks like at its absolute worst, think about the philosophy behind the actions of the powerful figures in the Epstein case. These were people with so much money and influence, they could literally remove every single moral and legal boundary. They had achieved total, absolute freedom to follow any impulse. But did it lead them to happiness? Paradise? No way! It created a black hole, this massive, hollow void they had to invent all these twisted justifications to even try and fill. So this all leads us to a pretty huge paradox. If total freedom is a nightmare, and we all end up serving a master anyway, what in the world does it mean to actually be free? And this is the key takeaway right here. The game isn't about escaping servitude. That's impossible. The game is about consciously and wisely choosing what or whom you're going to serve. Because if you choose a bad master, an inferior one, like money, or what other people think of you, or your own ego, it's gonna use you up. It'll chew you up and spit you out, take your best years, and leave you with nothing but an empty feeling inside. So here it is. This is the great paradox. True freedom isn't about having no master. It's about having the incredible courage to look at the world, to look at yourself, and to voluntarily submit to a worthy one, a higher purpose, a principle, a calling that's truly worth your life. All right, let's bring this whole thing full circle, back to our original phrase. With this new way of thinking about freedom, what are people really saying when they claim everything is fair in love? When someone says that, what they're really doing is declaring that their own messy, chaotic emotions are their master. They're basically saying, my desire is God, and I will do literally anything in service to that God, even if it means hurting you, betraying my own morals, and ignoring the truth. And that's not passion. That's not some higher form of love. That's just worshiping your own ego. A love with no boundaries, no rules, no morals, it's not powerful. It's a destructive flood that just drowns everyone and everything in its path. So, how do we find a love that's actually powerful without being destructive? Well, the answer is in this really simple, but I think really beautiful analogy. I want you to picture a river. When that river breaks its banks, what happens? It's a disaster, right? A chaotic flood that just destroys everything. But when that same river is guided and contained by its banks, that's when it becomes a source of life, of immense power, of sustenance. So, in this analogy, our powerful human emotions, our love, our passion, that's the river. And discipline, having a moral code, committing to do the right thing, choosing that worthy master, that is the riverbank. And the banks don't make the river weaker. They're what gives the river its force, its direction. They're what turns chaos into real power. So, back to the big question. Is everything fair in love and war? Absolutely not. Not even close. In both of those arenas, a lack of boundaries isn't freedom. It's just a recipe for chaos. True strength, and I think true love, isn't about the freedom to do whatever you want. It's about the discipline to do what you know is right. And in a world that seems obsessed with crossing lines and breaking rules, maybe the most rebellious, the most radical thing you can do is to build strong banks for your river and create a power that actually gives life.
All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to explore this really powerful idea, one that kind of ties together neuroscience, ancient philosophy, and, well, the very meaning of love and freedom. We're going to talk about the river of our emotions and the banks that are meant to guide it.
And, it all kicks off with this one single phrase, a saying that's, it's pretty seductive. You've definitely heard it. You might have even used it yourself. It sounds super wise on the surface, but what if it's actually a map leading straight to our own destruction? Yep, you know this one. It's been floating around for centuries, basically, giving us a hall pass to cross lines, right? To just let our passions go completely wild. When the emotions are high, the rules they don't apply. Or do they? But seriously, is it? Is that actually true? Is it wise? Let's really question that assumption for a minute. I mean, really think about it. How often do we hear this phrase used to justify, all sorts of sketchy stuff? Lying to get ahead at work, manipulating someone you supposedly care about, even completely betraying your own core values. It's this sneaky logic that says, hey, my feelings are intense, so morality gets a timeout.
Okay, so to really get why that idea is so incredibly dangerous, we've got to pop the hood, We need to look at the actual biology of this thing we call love.
So if you strip away all the poems and the romance novels, a neuroscientist would tell you that love is basically this, a highly evolved survival tool. It's not some kind of magic. It's biological hardware that evolved to make social creatures, like us, stick together so we don't, die.
And right at the center of this whole system is a molecule called oxytocin. You've probably heard it called the love hormone or the cuddle chemical, right? It's what gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling of connection. But here's the thing. It's not the simple little love potion everyone makes it out to be.
See, oxytocin has a dark side. It's two-faced. The exact same chemical that bonds you fiercely to your family, your team, your in-group, it also jacks up your suspicion and distrust of outsiders. It's not about universal love. It's a survival chemical designed for one thing: us versus them.
And what's fascinating is how this one chemical gets triggered. For example, take a mother's gaze at her newborn. That's a natural, very specific release of oxytocin. It's contextual, right? It's earned through a real bond. But then you can get a synthetic flood of the exact same molecule from something like an MDMA pill. It's a massive, unfiltered release that makes you feel this overwhelming love for everybody, but it's totally disconnected from any real human context.
And here's the real mind bender.
A powerful moment of worship, that feeling of divine connection, guess what? It triggers the very same chemical pathways.
So, get this. The evolutionary hardware is identical in all three cases. The only difference is the software we're running on it. The context, the story, the meaning we attach. That's what changes everything.
Okay, so this biological reality, it leads us right out of the lab and into a really deep philosophical problem. And that is our very, very complicated relationship with freedom. I mean, we all say we want freedom, right? I just want to be free. But deep down, philosophers like Sartre pointed out that absolute freedom is, well, it's terrifying. Why? Because it comes with the crushing weight of total responsibility. For everything, every choice, every failure, it's all on you. And that is a heavy, heavy burden.
And this leads to a pretty harsh truth, which was captured perfectly by Dostoevsky. His character, the Grand Inquisitor, basically says that deep down, people don't really want freedom. What they crave is certainty. They'd rather lay their freedom at someone's feet and say, just tell me what to do. Just make me your slave, but feed me. Because the weight of choosing for yourself is just, it's too much.
And look around. We see this everywhere today. To escape that anxiety of true freedom, we willingly become slaves to, well, to lesser things. We chain ourselves to the rat race, serving money. We become slaves to our own neurochemistry, chasing the next dopamine hit from our phones. We surrender our ability to think for ourselves to an ideology or a political tribe. Or we get trapped by our own ego, spending all our energy protecting this perfect image we've created.
And the proof is in the pudding. When you look at people throughout history who had enough power to have no boundaries, to live with total unchecked freedom, they didn't find paradise. They found a void, an empty, miserable darkness. Absolute freedom doesn't lead to fulfillment, it leads to nothingness.
So this all leads to a really hard truth, a profound and, frankly, unavoidable conclusion. You can't escape serving something. It's literally impossible. The only choice you actually have is what, or who, you choose as your master.
And that idea, that's where everything we've talked about, the biology, the philosophy, it all comes together in one central metaphor. Think about a river. When it's channeled by its banks, it's powerful, it's directed, it's life-giving. It carves canyons and sustains ecosystems. But take away those banks, and that exact same water becomes a chaotic, destructive flood that just wipes everything out.
And that is the core idea right there. Our powerful human emotions, that's the river. And a moral framework, a set of principles you live by, those are the banks. Without the banks, our emotions just become a catastrophic flood.
So, what does this all mean for you and me? How are we supposed to find true freedom when the world is constantly screaming at us that freedom means having no rules, no boundaries, no banks at all?
Well, it means we have to completely redefine what freedom is. It's not the absence of constraints. That's a childish idea. True freedom is having the wisdom and the courage to choose your constraints. It's about voluntarily submitting to a master, to a set of principles that is actually worthy of your life. You know, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl understood this on a level most of us can't even imagine. He realized that meaning, and even a sense of freedom, isn't found by avoiding suffering. It's found by committing yourself to something bigger than you are, something that gives that suffering a purpose. And this brings us all the way back to the beginning. That old saying, it's a lie. Everything is fair in love and war. That's the logic of a flood. It's chaos. But real love, the kind that actually builds something beautiful and lasting, that's the river. It isn't about the freedom to do whatever you feel like. It's about the discipline and the strength to do what is right.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Stop lying to yourself about being totally independent. We all serve something. So you have to look honestly at your own life. What's actually driving your choices? What are you sacrificing for? Forget this idea that you're the master of your own universe and ask yourself the one question that really matters. What are you actually serving?